Hi everyone, in this video we're going to just go through a little bit of intro stuff. We're going to dedicate some time at the beginning of the class to some functions review, so some pre-calc 1 type review. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but the first couple of pages of your function review packet have information, things that I would expect you to know coming out of pre-calc class. So as you're working through this review, please just really think about it as I'm just trying to give you a heads up. So if there's something that seems unfamiliar or you need more practice, just contact me. This is your chance to get that figured out before we get going, and we need it either in this class or in calc. And I'll be focusing on things that we need for those two reasons. Either they come up at some point in this class or they're a really big deal for calculus. So I want to make sure that I bug you about them a little bit before we jump into the trig. So again, please look through this. I'm not going to read through all of it. There's some vocab to remember, so just reminders here. If any of these things looks foreign, you want to talk to me if it doesn't make sense as you work through homework. Really good ones are this average rate of change, which is basically just a slope calculation. F of b is your y value when x is b, f of a is your y value when x is a. So this is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 basically. So if you're asked for an average rate of change, you're really just calculating slope. And then it's really great to notice as we're getting closer to calculus that if you take the average rate of change from x to x plus h, you get this mess right here, and the denominator actually simplifies a little bit, and we end up with this f of x plus h minus f of x over h, which is called the difference quotient. And again, that's some sort of a slope calculation, and we'll get more into the details when we get to calculus, but it's great if you recognize that as a slope calculation. And we're going to make sure that we practice the algebra involved in actually setting up a difference quotient and simplifying it to the point where we can cancel out an h. It's a really big deal for your first couple weeks in calc. Okay, so look over carefully. There's also a decent chunk of info, little chunks of info here about composition of functions and inverse functions. I don't think I'm going to point out anything particular here. We'll definitely see some examples with these, but if you need a little notation reminder or anything else, you can glance here and see if I've got it for you. If I don't, make sure you ask. This, once again, is your chance to get some review help with things that you don't remember. The last thing on this first page is a list of the transformations. So basically, I would just expect that you can look at an equation and identify which transformations you have, and that you can then apply those transformations to the graph of your starting function f of x to get a new graph. So the transformations you should have done before and should be comfortable with are shifting the entire graph up, down, left, or right. So that's a rigid transformation. It doesn't change the shape of the graph at all. It just slides it in one or more directions. You can have a combination of a couple of those. You should also be able to spot and apply vertical or horizontal stretch or compression. So this is not rigid. It does actually change the shape of your graph. Vertical stretch would stretch all of your y values away from the x-axis. Vertical compression would squash all of your y values toward the x-axis. And similarly with horizontal, if you're doing horizontal compression, you're squashing towards the y-axis, and horizontal stretch is pulling away from, stretching away from the y-axis. And then the last two are the flips or reflections. You should be able to spot those negative signs that force you to either flip upside down, flip over the x-axis, or flip horizontally, flip over the y-axis. So just make sure you look over this list and think about if there's anything there that you're not okay with. And then again, we'll work on some examples, and you'll have problems in the homework part of your packet that lets you test yourself. I think